Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Good afternoon to our viewers and welcome. My name is Lori Barr. I am the co-founder of Raise the Bar, an organization that provides support to single parent students. Um, what we do is create opportunity and economic mobility for you and your children through education. Today is our last webinar in the Set Yourself Up series that we've created to provide kind of a toolkit to student parents who are considering or planning on transferring from a 2-year school to a 4-year school. The goal of this webinar was to give you information, kind of create, a toolkit for you to use as you go through that process of decision making, of navigating the campus, connecting with folks, in order for you to attain your ultimate goal, which is to earn a 4-year degree. And so today we are focusing on social capital. We have a wonderful presentation prepared for you. And before we do that, I just want to remind you, you can submit questions. We will take the questions at the last 10 minutes of the webinar. You can submit those. We'll be gathering them and answering them later. You can also use the chat function if you have any questions or concerns or anything to add during the webinar. We do have somebody monitoring that, and she will communicate with you. Finally, the PowerPoint that we'll be sharing today with the videos and this webinar will be available for you to access on our website later on today. And you can also access the other 4 webinars that are also on our transfer series page on our website, and that's at raisethebar.org. And so with that, I want to welcome Susan Warfield, the program director at the Student Parent Help Center at the University of Minnesota. I will turn it over to her and she will introduce her student parent panel and get you going. Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoy.
Hi there. I'm going to disappear now so that I can most fully share my screen. Okay, I'm Susan Warfield. As Lori said, I'm with the Student Parent Help Center, a campus-based support program for student parents who attend the University of Minnesota. Our student parent panel today consists of Maria Canar, Raise the Bar scholar, graduated U of M TC student, Brenda Coronel, Raise the Bar scholar, UCLA Masters in Social Work student, and Aronica Jackson, Raise the Bar alumni scholar and student parent advisor. And when we begin the discussion part of the presentation, they will be able to get to tell you a little bit more about themselves. Okay, we're having a delay. Okay, there we go. Today's topic is on social capital, building connections, finding community, launching your future. And you may wonder why there are trees up there, but we're going to explain that as we go on because we believe this is part of planting seeds for growth and empowerment. Why do we have a forest? There are many connections to the way trees grow and actually communicate, what they call the World Wood Web, and our discussion of social capital today. Building connections with each other in a community is the foundation of life, even for trees and other wildlife. So we're going to show a quick little video that is going to kind of introduce why it's so important on all levels for people to build community, and that it's actually, sometimes when we talk about social capital, students will ask questions like, well, isn't that me using other people for my benefit? Or isn't that kind of being shallow and pretending to like people because I want to get somewhere in life? But as we can see, this type of interconnectedness is a basic part of nature.
Trees may look like solitary individuals, but the ground beneath our feet tells a different story. Trees are secretly talking, trading, and waging war on one another. They do this using a network of fungi that grow around and inside their roots. The fungi provide the trees with nutrients, and in return, they receive sugars. But scientists have found this connection runs far deeper than first thought. By plugging into the fungal network, trees can share resources with each other. The system has been nicknamed the Wood Wide Web. It's thought that older trees, fondly known as mother trees, use this fungal network to supply shaded seedlings with sugars, giving them a better chance of survival. Those trees that are sick or dying may dump their resources into the network, which might then be used by healthier neighbours. Plants also use fungi to send messages to one another. If they're attacked, they can release chemical signals through their roots, which can warn their neighbours to raise their defences. But like our internet, the Wood Wide Web has its dark side too. Some orchids hack the system to steal resources from nearby trees, and other species, like the black walnut, spread toxic chemicals through the network to sabotage their rivals. Arboreal cybercrime aside, scientists are still debating why plants seem to behave in such an altruistic way. The hidden network creates a thriving community between individuals. When you're next in woodland, you might like to think of trees as part of a big superorganism, chatting and swapping information and food under your feet.
Okay, so I chose that video to show you that this is really something quite natural, but it's something that can be very scary to many people. Connecting with others that we don't know can sometimes be a little bit intimidating. So, and actually when I've been doing career work for decades, and when I first started hearing the term social capital, it was a little bit confusing to me. I didn't really understand it. So to understand what social capital is, we kind of have to go dig down and define what capital itself is. Capital is, according to the dictionary, is wealth in the form of money or other assets owned by a person or organization or available for a purpose such as starting a company or investing. It's primarily seen in terms of money, assets, ownership, and wealth that an individual has at their disposal. Social capital is the interpersonal relationships, institutions, and other social assets of a society or group that can be used to gain advantage. And it seems like a big concept, but other terms for it are networking, connecting, building relationships, or even community development. Why is social capital critical for student parents? There are a long list of reasons, and I'm sure for those of you that are already in college, many of these may sound familiar to you. Student parents often report feeling isolated. Single mothers in particular report feelings of isolation. Student parents frequently report feeling that college campuses are unwelcoming to non-traditional students, especially when students transfer from a 2-year to a 4-year. New settings can be intimidating for many people. Transfer students may leave behind a support network that they spent a year or two developing, and then they've got to start over again. Student parents at 4-year institutions can have a difficult time finding true peers because at a larger institution, there may be fewer students that like you or parenting. Time poverty caused by competing demands often leaves minimal time for non-academic pursuits. Reaching out to others in general can often be intimidating for many people. And first-generation college attendees and low-income students may have limited experience with this type of networking. And I can relate to this very much. I was low-income, blue-collar background, grew up in a town of 200 people where everybody knew each other. So when I went to college on the other side of the country, it was a very intimidating thing to try to think of meeting new people. Now we're going to turn some of this over to the student parent panel so that they can give their opinions on what we're talking about. And they will tell you a little bit more about themselves, and then I will go into the questions. So Maria, Brenda, and Veronica, can you just tell us a little bit more about yourselves?
Sure. My name is Maria Canar. I went to the U of M. I got my bachelor's in Spanish studies. I have two daughters. I'm in April. I'm is 9 and April is 6. She just turned 6. Sorry. And yes, that's and right now I'm working to see if I can get into the dental hygiene school. And would you want me to answer this questions now, Susan?
Why don't we go into introductions and then I'll read off the questions.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yep, that's fine. Brenda, do you want to go next?
Yes. Hi, so if you watched other webinars, you know that my name is Brenda. I'm a student parent representative for Raise the Bar along with Aronica, who will introduce herself next. I'm a mother of a 6-year-old daughter, Zoe, and she's currently in remote kindergarten while I'm in remote MSW program. So that's been a little difficult, but us single mothers, we always make a way through it. So that's just about me. Next is Veronica.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aronica Jackson. I have graduated, thankfully. I have a 3-year-old little girl named Rain, who is actually at daycare right now.
Okay. All right. Our first question is, when did you first learn about social capital? And if we want to go in the same order, Maria, should we start with you? And you can tell us a little bit about if that term resonates with you and if you can remember when you first heard it.
To be honest, it does not resonate with me. And I don't recall the first time I learned about social capital, to be honest. I mean, I can probably say maybe 3 years ago or something like that, but not.
Okay. And Brenda?
So when I first read Yoso's Community Culture Wealth at UCLA, when I transferred there, was the first time I actually read about social capital. And Yoso just defines it as a tool that students use to navigate higher education. And I didn't know before that I'm at community college at Rio Hondo. I was actually practicing social capital by connecting with other student parents and having clubs. I was a mother and academia advisor for the Mocha Club on campus, and we started it because UCLA had a club for mothers, and me and my friend Selena thought, oh, why don't we do this at Rural Hondo, because we lack social capital, but we didn't call it social capital at the time. So what we did was we gathered friends that we had that were also student parents, and we asked them to join our club. And it was really great and rewarding at the end. We had a graduation just for student parents. So yeah, that's when I first learned about social capital. And I didn't experience any barriers when trying to build social capital at my college, thankfully.
And that's a wonderful example, Brenda, because coming together in clubs or joining clubs that already exist are a great way to build social capital, or if we prefer to call it networking or whatever. So that's a great example. And Aronica?
I actually just heard the term social capital the first time, I think maybe 2-3 months ago. And it was from Brenda because I had no idea what that was. However, looking back on it, I was also in some like student groups. I belong to a program called Trio. I'm not sure if it's across the country, but it's definitely here in the MenSCU system in Minnesota.
Yep. And Trio, for those listening, that's an excellent point to bring up, Veronica. Trio is actually a federally funded program. And most college campuses, I think the ones that can accept federal aid, do have some type of Trio programming. And they serve first gen students of color, low income. I think there's 5 different criteria that you have to meet to be in TRIO. And I think you can opt into TRIO at the point of admission, or you can contact them once you're admitted and see about entry. They also have a wonderful program called McNair Scholars that helps prepare you for graduate school, and they have a bridging program for high school students for those of you that might still be in high school as well. So thank you so much for bringing that up, Veronica, because TRIO is a great example of a way to build social capital, even if you don't know what that is and aren't used to that term. How about any barriers to, and again, if social capital is too big of a term or new of a term, were there any barriers that any of the 3 of you experienced in just getting grounded on campus and making friends or meeting people?
I guess I can share my experience on the way of building social capital. So I've always been very like social, and so my parents are low income immigrants, and all they do in this country is work, pay bills, and survive. And so they aren't really equipped with the tools, or they weren't equipped with the tools to help me build that social capital. And like I didn't even, it would seem as a like an awkward thing. And even now that I have social capital, people that I network with that help me in different, phases in my life and career choices and things like that, for them it seems some as still like an unknown and awkward thing. So for me, I think that's like the biggest barrier coming from from family.
Okay, any other comments on barriers to building social capital?
I can go next. I think the biggest one for me, just like Maria said, being like that first generational college student, I didn't really realize how important it was to build social capital, or even like a network of people. And so when I started my college career, it was before I became a parent. But then when I went back after having my daughter, um, we still never had conversations on how important it was to build your networks. I am not outgoing. I am very introverted. So doing like the extracurricular activities and all of those functions, I just didn't have any interest in doing. But I feel like had I known, like if somebody would have said, you need to do these things, you need to build your network, you need to have these conversations, I would have done it.
And another excellent point, Veronica, the whole introvert extrovert thing can make this seem more or less overwhelming. I, as a fellow introvert, felt the same way. The thought of networking with people I don't know was horrifying to me. But as we talk and go on through the presentation, we'll talk a little bit more about how to overcome those initial fears. All right. Why is social capital part of building a secure future? There's a direct tie between social capital, financial capital, and success. In today's world, one of the ways you build social or financial capital and make money is by making connections, getting the best lead on the best jobs. Even sharing financial investment tips helps people create wealth within their social group. Social capital is a social justice issue. Who has it and who does not can influence who gets the job, who has the most security, who has the most opportunities in all aspects of life. Studies show student parents have less opportunity to build social capital due to time, poverty, income, and other factors. Just generally, if you have to work more, that takes up more hours in the day when you could be doing social things with other people that might help you build your social capital. Low income and BIPOC people often benefit most from social capital and networking, but may have less time and opportunity to develop it for the same reasons about the time, poverty, income, and other factors. Often you must compete for jobs and other opportunities with people who have been building social capital their whole lives or who inherited it from birth. Okay, back to our wonderful panel. I'd like to throw out another question. Can you think of times in your life when the lack of social capital hurt you? And again, if social capital is too big of a term, think about, were there times when you didn't have a community to fall back on or friends to rely on, and how that might have impacted your life at the time? And we can start with whoever is ready to go.
So childcare, to answer both of those questions, childcare is a big one. When I transferred to UCLA and moved to Los Angeles, I didn't feel comfortable asking the new friends I had just made to watch my daughter while I took evening classes because I didn't want to be a burden to them. So I would just take my daughter Zoe to classes, but her school, her childcare was located 3 miles from campus. And it was just inconvenient for me to drive, even though it was 3 miles, that's 30 minutes in traffic. There and back would be an hour. So an hour in commute time I would use. Plus, I would take Zoe on campus and try to make her stay quiet while I was in lecture. And it was just a big hassle. So it became easier for me once I was comfortable enough to ask for help, and actually was easier also for my friends because I would also return the favor.
Excellent example. Childcare is a great example of how networking and getting to know people can really help you. Maria, can you think of times, and again, if you want to answer both questions at the same time, that's fine too, times when lack of social capital hurt and times when it may have helped and made your life easier?
Well, now that I think it's a lot to share, but I can probably say, like, again, growing up and, from the initial phase of my living here in the US, I was deprived from the social capital. And so that hurt me at a young age. And I think I am an extrovert. So as an adult, when you're deprived as a young age and you grow up deprived from social capital and you know and you're scared of, like you said, to make connections and talk to people, and as an adult, when you get the help, when you have someone that says, hey, I can help you, it seems sort of it's hard to navigate that system, because it's an unknown world that you're used to, and then now there is people that are trying to help you build that social capital to make your life easier, and that can be frightening at times, and so it requires a lot of wisdom, a lot of really trusting other people, and seeing that they're really being honest and are there to help you.
Okay. And Aronica, any thoughts?
Yeah, looking at the second part of this question, so I work for Hennepin County here in Minneapolis, and when I started, I was in COVID response. And then based on the relationships that I have made within the county, I am now transferring over to a permanent position with healthcare for the homeless. And I really wouldn't have been able to do that without building that social capital within like my employee group. Just because everything that happens within county is really relationship based. And I would say, like in government in general, a lot of the times when people get hired, it's because of a relationship that they have made either in college, or a relationship that they had with somebody who is currently in one of those positions.
Excellent point. And I think a key thing that came out of the feedback from the panel this time is trust. And I don't think we talk enough about that it sounds great, like, oh yeah, put yourself out there and meet some people, it'll help your life, but the introvert thing can make it more difficult, but so can maybe a past history of not having such a great experience when you do reach your hand out for help or assistance and you don't get it. We have student parents talk about that all the time, that they might have to meet with us multiple times to realize that they can trust us enough to offer or to ask for that help that we've offered the first time we do an intake with them. And so trust is part of this, learning to believe that there is a chance somebody might help you, or that if sometimes people don't, that doesn't mean that everybody will close the door if that's been your past experience. So those are such wonderful comments. Thank you very much. Life is just easier when you have a community. And for those listening, you can think back to times in your life, even as kids, when you maybe had a bunch of kids that you could walk to school with or that you could play with on the playground. It made it less lonely when you went to school. Maybe you felt more protected or more noticed because you were with other kids. Community can provide shared resources, shared information, introductions to people you need to know, advocacy and support, somebody that has your back when maybe something doesn't go right, a buffer against stress, mentorship and guidance in areas of your life that may be new for you. Who are the people who will help you succeed on campus? They can become your social capital. And again, this is where maybe overcoming some natural introversion or maybe some trust issues from the past, it can come in, and you may have to build your psychological reserves to kind of trust and take a chance again. But campus program staff, there are lots and lots of different programs. TRIO is one of the ones that Aronica mentioned that can be a huge source of support. And so finding out where your TRIO program is on campus and maybe setting up an appointment to meet with them would be a great first step. Faculty, somebody that you spend a whole term in class with is probably worth getting to know a little bit. Use their office hours to see if you can get some mentorship from them outside of class. Student peers, often that inside information about what professors are good or what classes may be more difficult than you want to take on for a basic requirement. A lot of that information can come from peers that have already taken those classes. Campus experts, your financial aid people. If you have a student parent program, they're kind of your experts in how to navigate that campus with children and how to get family supports if you need them out in the external community. And then campus jobs and internships. Back to our panel. The questions this time are, how did you build your social capital on campus? And let's start with that because that's a pretty big question. And Maria, if you want to start first.
So how I started my social capital on campus, it was literally through my first semester at MCTC. That's where I started. Then I transferred to the U of M, and so I met my professor. So I did it through faculty. I had this little bias about men, and actually, this professor is it's a male, and it turned out to be like the opposite. Right now I've known him for like 6 years now, and he has been a great resource that has helped me connect with a lot of people that has truly changed my life. So sometimes we got to push ourselves out there, so that's my experience. That's how I have built social capital on campus.
Okay, Brenda.
So as I mentioned before, to build social capital on campus, you just have to find friends with the same interests. Friends or classmates, eventually they'll become your friends if you have the same interests and you build a club together. At Rio Hondo Community College, where I transferred from, I was the Student Without Borders Secretary and Mothers of Color in Academia, known as MOCA, advisor too. So I got those leadership positions because my social capital connections, they asked me to join and to take up those leadership positions on campus. Both of those clubs are fairly new on campus. And we had our goal as we started was to increase the number of members we have on our club. So we would do that by, we sought people with the same interest by offering free food on our weekly meetings or posting flyers around the campus. And actually, that's actually how I met my fiance in class, because I was passing around a tablet and asking students to sign the Do Not Afraid list, which is a list for undocumented students and allies that they're not afraid that they're undocumented, that got published at Rio Hondo. Anyways, so I asked him to sign that. So you can ask your professors ahead of time if you can share flyers or just information about your club in class. Just let them know ahead of time and see if they're okay with that. And that really helped increase the number of members that joined us. And I honestly believe because I had so much leadership positions on campus, it helped me get into competitive schools like Berkeley and UCLA, because on the application they literally ask you what leadership positions do you have, or another question they ask is what have you done to make your community better. And I was able to write about those experiences. So yeah, I think I just answered all those questions on there.
Awesome.
Yeah, to answer the last question, yes, because of that, I was able to graduate with more social capital.
Well, and the club thing, again, is a wonderful thing to point out. At most universities, like at the U of M, it takes 3 people and $15 to start a club, or what they call a student group. And that looks amazing on a resume. So even just 5 or 6 student parents hanging out and having lunch together and following the rules that they outline for a student group can be something that builds connections, provides visibility for student parents on campus, and also helps you all build your resume. Okay, Aronica, would you like to take any or all of these questions?
Sure. Like I said before, I didn't do much with social capital. However, as I was graduating, so I'm gonna go over like the things that I wish I would have done differently.
Okay.
I started seeing a life coach, and we did a vision board. And so my life coach pretty much pointed out the different things in my vision board and kind of like what I should have done to reach those points. And one of those was actually reaching out to professors and other faculty in the building, just to get pointers, and then have them connect me with other people in the community that could help me get to career-wise, like where I wanted to go. So I wish I would have done that throughout my time when I was in college, because I think that would have helped me a little bit more on the back end instead of having to hurry up and try and create these relationships, to then, have those relationships help me create other relationships. Because then, of course, COVID happened and then everything got shut down.
Mhm. And those are some wonderful points that you brought up. The vision board idea is actually fabulous. If some of you that are listening are struggling with your goals or not really able to define where you want to be in a few years, a vision board is just simply a collage of visual images or words that are powerful to you that describe what you want your life to look like a year or 5 or 10 or 15 years in the future. And amazingly enough, it sounds kind of magical or new agey or whatever, but it really does work. And there are legitimate, just like Aronica said, life coaches that use that all the time. And you can do that yourself as an activity on your own. And sometimes people are surprised by the images that they're drawn to and how maybe defined their goals are, and they didn't realize it until they saw it visually. So that's another great tip from our panel. Remember our trees that we started with in the beginning. They connect for survival, for altruism, for security, and to further their own growth. And altruism was used in that video, and they said that scientists are confused about why trees do these behaviors that seem like they're giving up themselves for the good of the community, which is what altruism means. It means you may make a sacrifice for something that you want for the greater good of a group or society. But really, what this is all about is everybody in society does better if we all build connections and we all build social capital. I forget what that saying is, but when one of us does better, we all do better, and that absolutely is true. When you're building social capital, think expansively, spread out beyond your comfort zone. Think in terms of diversity, of socioeconomic circumstances, of age and generation, of gender, of race, of life experience, of major and career expertise. Age, because many of your faculty and staff members are, of course, not going to be the same age as you in most cases. And they can be some of the most powerful connections you can make, especially for your future career. Those are the people that one day may need to provide references for a job or for grad school. And so if you don't get to know them while you're in that class with them your freshman year, it may be hard to go back and ask them for a reference when you're a senior and trying to prep for grad school or your job. Act consciously and with purpose. Have an expansive circle, but nurture those most closely associated with your goals. So it's great to network broadly, and you never know, somebody that's totally unrelated to your major might have a cousin that works in the exact field you want to get into, but you also want to refine and try to find people that are closely connected to your life goals and your career goals. Identify smaller circles and networks within the larger campus. And the panel was wonderful in bringing a lot of those up. Trios, student groups, even volunteering for a one-time campus event. You might buddy up with somebody or a group of people at that. Groups and programs for BIPOC students. I've mentioned this in other presentations, but one of the coolest and most broadly used and expansive groups on campus is our Black Student Union at the University of Minnesota. They hold huge social events. They are excellent in their recruitment. And I've had students that were part of them, and they connect after school is over. They find each other jobs. They give each other intros into their businesses that they wind up working for. Women's and men's centers can be a great place to connect. GLBTQ programs and associations, major specific organizations for your field. Getting women into the science, technology, and engineering programs is a big deal right now because they've been underrepresented for so long. So if you're going into that field, there will be a ton of organizations for women in STEM that gives you a smaller group to operate within the larger science and engineering colleges. Kids tutoring programs for teachers. You know, there might be a limited amount of hours that you can put in to get credit for a class in education. and you're meeting people already out there teaching in the community. One-time outreach events, like I mentioned before, just being involved in a food drive that might be pretty easy to bring your kiddos to, would be a way to make some connections. Okay, panel, can you give some examples of people you met at college who are now part of your social capital network? What have those in your social capital network done for you or taught you? And can you all give some personal examples or final comments about our topic? And I can remind you of these if these are too much all at once. So the first one is, can you give some examples of people you met at college who are now part of your social capital network?
Well, the first person I think about is Cherry. Cherry's the supervisor for UCLA Center for Community College Partnerships. Susan, you nod your head because you know she's a great connection to have. So Cherry hired me to mentor community college parenting students and also conduct workshops. If you can't tell already, public speaking makes me nervous, but because Cherry believed in me, I also believed in myself, and the opportunities that she gave me to answer more of your questions. The opportunities that she gave me taught me that great things, such as this one, talking and sharing resources with student parents and just supporting them, great things don't come from comfort zones. So that's the reason why I continue to push past my my nervousness and continue to stand up here and support you all. And Cherry also connected me with Raise the Bar, because Raise the Bar and UCLA Center for Community College Partnerships, specifically the parenting site, our mission has the same goal as Raise the Bar, which is to increase the number of student parents on campus and their graduation rates. And something else that Cherry did, examples would be she wrote my letters of recommendation, which helped me obtain the scholarship for Raise the Bar, which is a scholarship for single parents, and also grad school. So I got into UCLA and USC for my master's in social work, and I couldn't have done that because it's a requirement. You need at least 3 letters of recommendation, and because Cherry was my supervisor, she wrote me strong letters of rec. And most importantly, I say the thing that she did for me most and taught me is that she taught me to advocate for myself and to connect with other student parents who have also become my lifelong friends.
I can go next. So in my last semester at Metro, I met a bunch of people who work for Hennepin County. And one of them happened to be in, like, they were working in the field that they were going to school for. And so after I had gotten hired, she kind of like walked me through like what to expect, and then the different department sort of deals. And so when I was looking to transfer out of the department that I was in, she also helped me. So in my previous jobs, I've just kind of like taken whatever salary was offered. I never like negotiated my pay. And so what she taught me during that whole process is you don't accept the first offer. Come in with the absolute max, and then you kind of have to set a medium of, okay, if I can't get this, then I will still accept, you know, whatever the medium is between the lowest and the highest. And I actually use that to negotiate my pay for this position that I just got. Typically, they only do a 3% increase once you transfer. But with the amount of extra work that I was going to have to do, I talked to the supervisor who was going to be my supervisor when I start my new position. and 17% is what we came up with. So previous to like building the relationships with the people that I knew from my classes, I would have accepted the 30% and been like, this is great. But because I had folks that I had built relationships with, they were like, absolutely not. That's not appropriate. So that's kind of like what I was able to take away. And then my final comments, if you are watching this and you're still in the middle of your schooling, make sure you are building relationships, introverted or not. Like, it's really, really super important that you start to meet people and you kind of build, because those are the people once you graduate that you can always tap into.
Excellent comments. And I appreciate you bringing up the introvert or not, because that does create a bigger barrier for some people, but it's so much there's just so much worth in what you gain when you do make those connections. And I will say, as a lifelong introvert, I'm still an introvert at 59 years old, but it has gotten easier and easier and easier for me to make connections. Every time you practice, it gets a little bit easier. You may always be an introvert your whole life. It may never be something that you joyfully leap to going to a group event, but you'll get better at it and it will get easier. All right. Any final comments? Maria, did you take a turn at these?
I have not, and I would like to share some of my insights here. So you touch base on the toxic chemicals of a tree, right? And I just wanted to like translate that as how that has been for me in like building this social capital. For me, so like we build a community, and sometimes that community doesn't work the way that we want, you know, and sometimes there are people who are introvert and extrovert, and people don't want to share their resources and things like that. And one of the things that I've done within the past years is that my mantra is that I meet 10 people and only one are useful or benefit for whatever it is that I'm working on. You know, like it may sound like bad to say benefit, but like it's one person becomes useful and it's a network that can help you move on in life, you know. So and with the toxic chemicals, that can be bad communities, that can be your fears, that can be you know, childcare that we mentioned too, and so on. Also, what was I gonna say? Yeah. So, and I think one of the things is that as single moms, I feel that the lack of resources help us build a lot of character, and you know, just pushing ourselves out there. If one person says no, for me is like, go again. It's only one person. There's millions of other people out there, and you're not, what's the worst that can happen to you when someone says no to you? That someone says, hey, there's no money for childcare. Well, they're not the only people that can help you with money for, you know, for childcare expenses. There are other scholarships, there are other ways that you can try out, and also with communities and professors, and you know, and the network that you were referring to. And I mentioned already that my how I started my social capital was through a professor, and because of him, I was able to explore a lot of things, connect with a lot of people, great people, very professional people, and I built a great network, and it's really really rewarding. So that's all I can add.
And I think that's a great point. And when I saw that video, I thought, oh gee, do we want one that has that bit about the toxic poisoning in there? But I think that is a good point to bring up, Maria, is sometimes we have been burned. And some of us have been burned more in life than others. And so that makes it very hard to reach your hand out again and ask for help. But what I have seen, and I've seen our students who have worked with the Student Parent Help Center, that once they trust us to tell us what they're going through, we really can come through and help. And so that one helper can kind of undo a lot of the damage that maybe the 10 people that closed their door did, or they can at least restore that faith that you have in humanity a tiny bit. And the more you put yourself out there, yes, the more risk there is, but the more chance there is that you're going to find one of the helper people. They are out there. I believe in general, people are more good than bad, or we would have destroyed ourselves long ago. I honestly think about that. It's especially right now, these are tough times. It seems like the world is a very difficult place with the pandemic and all the social justice issues. But if there weren't people out there trying to make it better, we wouldn't be evolving at all. And we have been consistently moving forward on some level. So on the micro level, just, give people a chance, open that door just a tiny bit if that's all you have the faith for at that given time in your life. Ask your peers who they trust, get the word of mouth on who on campus is less likely to maybe close that door, maybe open it wider for you. And you will find people out there that want to help you, especially, I think, educators. People generally go into education, whether it's with little kids, K-12, or in college, because they had some desire to help people in some way, to educate them, to make the world better. That's not always the case, but by and large, I'm amazed at even our huge university. There are far more faculty that are willing to help my students when I reach out to them than there are ones that want to be rigid and say no or punish them because they missed a day of class because their kiddos were sick. Usually when I explain things and help them advocate for themselves, it works out. So just try to trust. The benefits are well worth the risk. All right, any final comments from the panel on any of that? Okay, we have 5 minutes for Q&A.
Sure. So following up as a fellow introvert with the other introverts on here, I wanted to say one of the ways that I find it easier for me to network is if I'm focused on something where I'm either feel like I'm an expert or just have a real interest in, because conversation comes a lot more naturally. And so that leads me to the question. I would like to start a student parent organization on my campus. How should I do that?
Okay, on most college campuses, unions and activities is the large umbrella group that manages student groups. And so typically the way it works on most campuses is each of them have rules on how many people you have to take or how many people it takes to make an official group. If you want to start your own ad hoc group, you can do that any way you want. But if you want the chance to get funding and be an official part of the university, you have to file certain forms. But it is not, they don't make it a huge barrier. Even at the great big, University of Minnesota, we're a huge public institution. It takes 3 students and $15. You file a form, you list yourselves as the leaders, and then that opens the door for you to be officially listed on the website, help with recruitment. Sometimes there's grants available. And so look through unions and activities and meet with a staff person in the student group's office and find out what you need to do.
Brenda, is that what you did with your group? And I was also curious, you said you did some photocopying. And so I was wondering, did you get funding from anywhere for your group?
Yes, as Susan mentioned, they do fund your clubs. You just have to have a certain amount of people enrolled. And first we had to make that number. So as I mentioned before, we printed out flyers, passed them around campus, and we shared each there was 3 of us that started, the president, vice president, secretary, actually 4 of us, and treasurer. And we just shared her classes, and eventually the club grew to the number we needed so we can get that funding, and the school, Rural Honduras Foundation, paid for it. And what they would pay for would just be to help us like with activities on campus, and the rest of the money we made ourselves by fundraising. We would use the money that the school gave us to buy food, and then we would sell the food after making it. We would sell it, and then we used all the money we made to actually give scholarships to undocumented students.
Oh, that's great. I think that's all the questions we have time for.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Susan, Brenda, Maria, and Aronica, for your insight, all of the lessons that you've learned, and how you were able to find community at your respective campuses, and also build relationships that ultimately help you achieve your goal of being being successful, of being a good parent, of being an active citizen, of pursuing the career that you that would bring you happiness and fulfillment. And so I appreciate you taking the time to join us today. I also want to let our viewers know that if you don't really know where to start, and you're kind of looking around your campus thinking, well, I might be transferring, I'm going to go to a new bigger school, you can look to us as part of your community, and you can start here. You can go to raisethebar.org and send an email. You can look to see what we do, the services that we provide, and reach out to us. If you want to talk to any of our scholars, Maria, Brenda, Aronica, let us know, and we can connect you with them. And I think I can speak with confidence that they would be happy to talk to you, and help, start to give you additional information so you can start to make those connections on your campus. So start here. We're here for you. We want to see you succeed. We are an organization that was built by and for single parent students. And, so we're part of your family. If there's nothing else, I just want to thank everybody again for their time. We hope you enjoyed the series. You can access it, all of the webinars on our website. And we hope to see you again soon. So signing off for now. Thank you.